They vanished, but maybe they found something first. Imagine this. In 1351, a torn map surfaced, drawn in the hand of a Templar knight. It showed a massive, perfect circle of land, west of the known world, a place that no one should have known existed. Not labeled Atlantis, but the shape was unmistakable. And then, the entire Templar fleet disappeared. Now here's where it gets chilling. I don't think they were destroyed. I think they left on purpose. Legends whisper of white-cloaked men boarding ships in dead silence, vanishing into the black Atlantic. No records, no graves, only symbols carved into stone. Concentric rings, a cross inside a triangle, the same geometry Plato described, and the same symbol found in ancient ruins in the Americas, centuries too early. What if the Templars weren't chasing power, but running from a warning? What if they believed Atlantis wasn't just real, but cursed? A city drowned not by nature, but by something older, darker, and waiting. Some say they hid its location, so we'd never repeat its fate. But if they failed, if the map still exists, then Atlantis isn't gone. It's waiting, beneath the waves. And maybe something down there is waiting for us. The temple fell, but the map remains. What if everything we know about history is nothing but a thin veil, hiding something unspeakable lying beneath the ocean? A torn, faded map from 1351 emerges from the darkness. Its coastlines are wrong, strange. It shows islands unknown to medieval men, and in the center of the ocean, a perfect circle of land. No name, no banner, just silence. Before we lift the veil history has tried so hard to bury, hit subscribe, like, and share this video, because what you are about to hear may change the way you see the entire human story. Salt and iron on the wind, canvas snapping in the dark. La Rochelle crouches on the Atlantic like a slumbering beast, its eyes glowing faintly, oil lamps shivering in the breeze. Under the gray moonlight, men in white robes marked with blood-red crosses move silently along the docks. Templar knights. Their faces are stone. Their eyes betray nothing. The dock workers pretend not to stare as heavy chests are hauled aboard the waiting ships. They do not know that by sunrise, their world will end. In Paris, King Philip IV has already signed the death warrant. A purge like no other is about to fall, swift, synchronized, merciless. At dawn, soldiers will storm every Templar stronghold. They will seize property, burn archives, torture brothers until they confess to sins both real and imagined. They will break the order. But in La Rochelle, something strange is happening. Something no one writes down, something no one dares speak of. That night, nearly 20 ships silently slip their moorings, sails swallowing the moonlight. Their hulls ride low, heavy with mysterious cargo. They glide west, into the mist, and are never seen again. No ship logs, no cargo manifests, no survivors. While hundreds of Templars across France are dragged away in chains, these ships simply cease to exist. History loses them in the dark, as if they were erased on purpose. Then, whispers. In Portuguese taverns, drunken sailors swear they saw ghostly white ships vanish over the western horizon. In North Africa, merchants speak of strange vessels arriving without flags, crewed by tall, fair-haired men in white cloaks. And on the island of Madeira, an older stranger tale persists, of a people who came from the west bearing tools no one had seen, who built in stone so perfectly cut that not even a blade could slip between the seams. La Rochelle, unlike most European ports of its age, faced west, not to the Holy Land, not to Rome, but toward the edge of the known world. 44 years later, 1351. A strange map surfaces, parchment brittle, ink dark as dried blood, the lines drawn with trembling precision. It depicts coastlines no one should have known, the outlines of lands that would not appear on any official chart for another century. And at the center of the ocean, a perfect symmetrical continent, no name, no heraldry, just a single Latin phrase at its edge, shaky and fading. The last journey. Not east, but beneath the setting star. to where the old kings drowned. No historian can explain it. How could anyone in the 14th century know the Americas existed? Unless someone had seen them. The clues appear scattered across centuries like the bones of a dead giant. In the ruins of a Templar castle in Scotland, masons find carved maritime symbols pointing west. In Nova Scotia, a mysterious stone pit, impossibly engineered, lies deep underground, its design medieval European, its purpose unknown. Along the coast of Brazil, archaeologists uncover Cyclopean stonework, seamless blocks laid centuries before any European landfall, eerily similar to known Templar architecture. And in the Vatican's secret archives uncovered in the early 1900s, a coded letter signed by a Templar commander named Jacques de Montbard. We are not fleeing. We are returning to where it began and where it shall end. During an Inquisition trial in 1310, a dying Templar whispered with his last breath, "We saw the round land, and no one should ever see it." Plato wrote of Atlantis, a mighty empire in the middle of the Atlantic, drowned in a single night by its own arrogance. For centuries, people called it a parable, but the unsettling truth, its symbols, its architecture, its concentric canals, they echoed Templar iconography. The same geometry, the same reverence for sacred circles and stonework beyond their era, as if the Templars were not seeking new lands, but seeking the birthplace of civilization itself. And if they found it, perhaps they drowned with it. Or worse, they brought something back. Nightmarish fragments surface like corpses. Years later, a few bloated bodies wash ashore in Ireland. Nails gone, eyes clouded white, lips mumbling, they still whisper below the waves, before dying. Hidden Vatican dossiers describe madness among men rumored to have sailed with the missing fleet. Insomnia, violent outbursts, blood leaking from eyes, tongues bitten off, sudden blindness overnight, and then nothing. As if whatever they carried back was not meant for this world, and history itself conspired to erase them to stop it from spreading. If they did not die, where are they? Some scholars whisper that a secret remnant of the Templars still walks among us, guarding a relic salvaged from Atlantis, something powerful enough to destroy the world. Others believe what they found did not return with them at all, but merged into the earth, sleeping beneath miles of ocean, waiting for someone foolish enough to awaken it. And on foggy nights off La Rochelle, fishermen still claim to hear the rhythmic creak of oars striking water, though the sea is empty. No lanterns, no hulls, just shadows, drifting in the mist. Maybe you are living on the very land they once found, and maybe they never wanted the world to know it existed. If you've ever felt the whisper of the deep, if you've ever sensed that something in our history is wrong, the ship creaks as it slips past the jagged rocks of Gibraltar, the ancient pillars of Hercules, the last outpost of the known world. Behind lies the familiar world of kings, popes, and wars. Ahead, nothing but darkness, water, and legend. For medieval minds, this crossing was not just geographic, it was metaphysical. Sailors whispered that beyond the pillars the sea boiled, that monsters rose from the deep, that the edge of the world awaited with jaws open. And yet, the Templars went. They went not with fanfare, not with priests blessing their voyage or chroniclers recording their names. They went in silence, as if slipping out of history by choice, as if they believed what lay ahead was not for the world to see, only for those prepared to vanish. Beneath the creaking deck, you imagine the chests they carried, not gold, not relics, but scrolls. Scrolls bound in oil-soaked linen, ink flaking. Symbols etched in scripts no medieval scholar could read. Fragments from Alexandria, from Damascus, from the lost libraries of Al-Andalus. Secrets gathered like coals, carried west to ignite something unseen. The wind howls, the coastline falls away, and the black Atlantic opens its jaws. For days, the sea is nothing but a rolling void. The sky presses low, gray as ash. Wooden hulls groan like old bones. At night, the horizon vanishes entirely. ship and crew floating in a sphere of pure black, stars wheeling overhead like watchful eyes. This was the realm the ancients feared, the ocean of shadows. And yet, the chronicles of other cultures whisper of it too. West African tales speak of islands swallowed by the sea. Mayan glyphs describe a dawn land to the east that drowned in fire. Phoenician fragments speak of the circle city that sank. What if the Templars knew these stories? What if they compared them, cross-referenced them, saw in their convergence not coincidence, but cartography? If so, this journey is no gamble. It's a pilgrimage. The waves slap the hull in slow rhythm like a heartbeat. Somewhere below, the ocean floor slopes upward, a buried mountain range, and the compass needles twitch as if something vast stirs beneath. On the seventh night, the wind dies. The sea is a sheet of black glass, so still it seems solid. And then, faintly on the horizon, lights. Not stars, not phosphorescence. Lights like torches, flickering low against the waterline. Impossible. The Templar captain orders silence. Oars dip soundlessly. The ships drift closer. And there, rising from the sea, are shapes. Stone, colossal. Concentric rings of white marble and black basalt, half collapsed, half submerged, glowing faintly under the moon. An impossible city. No birds, no waves, only silence, as if the ocean itself is holding its breath. They have found it. The sunken kingdom. Atlantis. They make landfall on a shattered quay. The stone is warm, though the air is cold. The air smells not of salt, but ozone, like the aftermath of lightning. Between the fallen pillars, murals writhe in the moonlight. Scenes of towers burning, oceans splitting, figures fleeing with arms raised. The streets are lined with crystalline pylons, cracked and glowing faintly as if something once pulsed through them and has only just stopped. No bodies, no bones, only echoes. One knight kneels, pressing his palm to the stone, and whispers, "It's still alive." Somewhere deep within the ruins, they find a stairwell spiraling down into darkness. And from below, a hum, low, unceasing, like the world itself is dreaming. What happened in those depths is lost. No chronicle survives. No survivor spoke. But in the years after, whispers surfaced like oil. Templar ships seen again, gaunt crews with hollow eyes, sailing into northern mists and never returning. Inquisitors recording strange outbreaks of madness among former Templar sailors, men speaking in dead languages, carving spirals into their flesh, walking into the sea without hesitation. The few items allegedly recovered from their abandoned commanderies were stranger still. Black stone discs that hummed without heat or motion, and maps of coastlines that had not yet been discovered. And then, nothing. The order was gone, erased as if to cauterize the wound they had opened. Centuries later, the ruins lie unseen beneath miles of water. But the whisper has not died. It surfaces in dreams, in half-remembered symbols, in the compass that spins near the Azores, in the minds of those who stare too long at blank parts of old charts. Some say the Templars never meant to claim Atlantis. They meant to seal it, to chain it in silence before the same arrogance that doomed it could infect the world again. And maybe they succeeded, or maybe they failed, and the price was their existence. La Rochelle remains. The wind still cuts across its gray harbor stones, but on certain nights when the moon is drowned in cloud, fishermen swear they see something just beyond the surf. The faint white gleam of sails, and men standing on the decks like statues, staring west. Always west. Were they chasing a myth, or fleeing from something they had found? Was the voyage of the missing Templar fleet an act of desperation, or prophecy? We may never know, because the answers are not gone. They are buried, and the ocean keeps its dead well. But sometimes, on nights when the sea is silent and the stars burn cold, you might hear the faint echo of oars striking water and voices in a tongue no one speaks anymore. They are still sailing, still guarding something, and still warning us not to follow. The crosses are crude but deliberate, carved deep into basalt, hardened by centuries of salt and wind. They bear the flared arms of the cross pate, the exact emblem of the Templar order. They should not be here. They should not exist. And yet they do. Rooted in stone, older than any Portuguese footprint, older than the official story of discovery itself. Local shepherds claim they've always been there. Older than the churches, one says, eyes narrowed against the spray. Older than the graves. It's the kind of detail historians wave off with a tired gesture. Coincidence, natural marks, hoaxes by later settlers. But stone does not lie easily, and these marks run too deep as though someone meant them to outlast the world. Nearby, half buried in volcanic soil, lies a block of black rock cut into precise angles, perfect 90-degree joins, weathered but unmistakably worked. A fragment of something larger. The Azores are a strange place. They rise from the Atlantic like the teeth of a drowned beast. Green peaks wrapped in mist, their shores gnawed endlessly by waves. For centuries, sailors called them phantom islands, sometimes here, sometimes gone. Local legends whisper of white-robed strangers who appeared generations before the Portuguese. They built no villages. They spoke no known tongue. They left behind nothing except stone. There are stories of tunnels under the hills, lined with carved spirals, their entrances long since swallowed by landslides. Fishermen claim that when storms roll in from the west, voices echo under the waves, chanting in a rhythm like oars striking water. When the first official Portuguese explorers landed, they found no people, no settlements. But they did find ruins, walls, paved terraces, and those crosses already weathered. Ruins on islands that, by official record, had never held human life. This is where the maps begin to betray the story. The Dulcet Portolan of 1339, a chart that should not know the Azores, shows small land masses scattered west of Iberia. They bear cryptic glyphs, crescents, suns, crosses. One symbol is almost identical to the sigil stamped on Templar seals. Another Catalan chart from the late 1300s shows an island labeled Antillia, suspiciously near where the Azores stand today. Official history dismisses it as fantasy, a cartographer's whim. But why would fantasy carry the exact bearings, distances, and currents that match the real islands almost perfectly? And then there's the parchment from Tomar, once a Templar stronghold. It speaks of an island of concentric circles beyond the strait, which rises and falls with the will of God. Skeptics argue it means Ireland. Some say Madeira, but the language is stranger than geography. Encircled by waves and stone, where the stars obeyed the priests. And its sin, to believe itself above God, and so it was returned to the sea. Plato's condemnation of Atlantis, mirrored centuries later by a Templar chaplain's trembling hand. Over and over, the same phrase recurs in scattered Templar manuscripts. Regnum sub aqua, the kingdom beneath the water. At first it sounds like theology, a metaphor for lost wisdom drowned by human sin. But then it appears beside navigation notes, distances from the last gate of Hercules, bearings toward the broken circle. And it ceases to sound like metaphor. It begins to sound like a destination. The Templars were not dreamers by reputation. They were engineers, builders, bankers, rational, precise. And yet here is this echo, persistent, like a song trapped in the stonework they left behind. It's as if two voices, centuries apart, Plato and the Templars, are whispering the same warning. In one fragment of a Templar sermon, buried among accusations of heresy, a single line stands out. As it was in the first kingdom, so shall it be again. Ostensibly, it refers to the fall of Rome, but the tone is off. As though the first kingdom meant something far older than Rome, older than Babylon, older than history itself, a civilization brilliant, arrogant, and doomed. A cycle that repeats, each empire rising higher only to collapse under its own pride and sink beneath the waves. Atlantis as not just a place, but a pattern. And the Templars, on the brink of their own annihilation, might have seen themselves in its mirror. You stand on the cliffs of Tarifa, wind screaming off the Atlantic. The horizon burns orange with the dying sun. It's easy to imagine them here, cloaks snapping in the gale, eyes fixed on the black unknown, not out of madness, but purpose. Somewhere far beyond the surf, their ships would have slipped past the Pillars of Hercules, past the edge of the known world, armed with star charts, with faith, and perhaps with a map that should not have existed. Behind them, persecution, fire, and the noose. Ahead, silence. And something the world was never meant to see. Most dismiss it as romantic nonsense. Wood rots, ships sink, records are lost. And yet the anomalies remain. The maps that shouldn't exist, the crosses that shouldn't be on volcanic stone, the whispered tales of strangers on islands not yet discovered. Perhaps the missing fleet didn't flee destruction. Perhaps they sailed toward it, seeking the place where the first kingdom fell so they might keep its secret buried, or warn the world what happens when pride dares to rival the gods. Somewhere beyond the Azores, beyond the reach of light, the ocean floor hums. Sonar glances off straight lines, perfect rectangles. Geology shrugs, but stone remembers. The air down here tastes of rust and rot. The stone sweats, your lantern hisses. The tunnels beneath Chateau de Gisors twist like arteries carved into chalk. A secret world beneath the French countryside. Above, the tourists chatter, eat their sandwiches, pose for photos against weathered battlements. They will never know what sleeps below their feet. They call it the Codex of Gisors, a phantom manuscript, never officially found, never officially proven, which of course makes belief in it stronger. The story whispers that when the Templar order began to collapse, a remnant of its spiritual branch, not the bankers, not the knights, but the keepers, fled here. They carried with them relics, scrolls, and a single manuscript, one that described a land of perfect geometry, rivers winding in concentric arcs, towers aligned with the stars, and its obliteration in fire and water. The text never names this place. It only calls it Terra Prima, the first land. In 1640, a caretaker named Roger Lemoyne claimed he stumbled on a sealed chamber beneath the chapel at Gisors. He spoke of 30 iron coffers, strange scrolls wrapped in oilcloth, and symbols carved into the stone, circles within circles, like ripples frozen in rock. When he reported it, he was silenced. The chamber was sealed, he was quietly dismissed, and his name bled from the records. No photos, no excavation, just an echo that refused to die. Skeptics insist he invented it, chasing attention or coin. But monastic inventories from the region, fragile pages hidden in parish archives, mention Liber Terrarum Specularum, the Book of Mirrored Lands kept under guard in the 14th century, written in alternating hands, Latin, Greek, traces of Arabic, like a code stitched together by wandering minds. Another inventory labels it simply, Templum Terra Secreta, the Temple of the Secret Earth. One legend says the codex contained a map, but not a map as we understand it. A spiral of symbols, where each curve represented not miles but epochs, not places but echoes. Deciphered one way, it formed a chart of stars. Deciphered another, it showed a continent of perfect circles floating in the Western Sea. Some say it was allegory, a spiritual diagram. But when Jesuit historians in the 1700s tried to correct the mirrored script, they found it aligned eerily well with the mid-Atlantic ridge, with the Azores sitting like shattered teeth on its crown. And if you rotated the page, the spirals became shorelines, hints of the codex surface in other places like shards washed ashore. A half-burned Templar scroll in Tamar mentions 30 coffers guarded by those who remember the first land. A letter from a Carthusian monk in Avignon warns of those who try to rebuild the drowned kingdom, and describes concentric harbors of white and black stone. In the Vatican's restricted stacks, a single torn page catalogs a tabula occidentalis, a Western chart, marked only with this: non amplius terra sed memoria. No longer land, but memory, as if someone had erased a continent and left only the outline of its ghost. Here is where the theories turn, not forward, but backward. What if the Templars weren't seeking Atlantis, but returning to it? Some fringe researchers argue the order believed themselves heirs of a legacy older than Christianity, older than history. They point to the Templars' obsession with sacred geometry, with the Vesica Piscis, the flower of life, symbols found in Egyptian temples, Sumerian seals, and Minoan ruins. They saw patterns no one else dared to see, and perhaps they recognized those same patterns etched into crumbling stones on the Azores, in the layout of Geysers itself, whose towers form a perfect seven-pointed star. If so, their mission was not discovery, it was reclamation, not conquest, but return. Imagine it, a dying order, hunted, betrayed, cornered, their leaders burned, their wealth stolen, their name blackened into heresy, and yet they load their ships in silence, not gold, not arms, but scrolls, maps, secrets. They sail west not to escape persecution, but to bury themselves with their secret, to vanish where no king, no pope, no inquisitor could follow. If Atlantis was real, and if they found even a fragment of it, perhaps they realized it was not a treasure to seize, but a warning to seal away forever. And so they left La Rochelle, 20 ghost ships sliding into black water, lanterns doused, oars silent, heading for the place where the first land drowned. Centuries later, their name is ash, their order dissolved, their graves unmarked. But the echo lingers, in half-buried crosses on volcanic cliffs, in maps that show coastlines too accurate, too early, in whispers of a codex locked in stone beneath a French hill, and maybe in the silent hum of something vast sleeping under the mid-Atlantic swell. Maybe the Templars did not fail. Maybe they succeeded. Maybe they buried the truth so deep that only those willing to vanish could find it again.